Now, I don't know how many of you out there are actually following all of the Democrats that are currently vying to win the nomination for president of the United States. It seems to be pretty much every Democrat out there is running to be president. But I was watching some excerpts from the town hall the other night. I don't watch the whole town hall. I just wanted to see the excerpts. But I was watching them, and one of the candidates made a perfect Second Amendment argument, a perfect pro-Second Amendment argument. Now, you might say, well, that sounds weird that a Democrat's making a perfect pro-Second Amendment argument. Well, they weren't actually talking about the Second Amendment. They were talking about something else. The candidate who made the argument was Bernie Sanders. Now, what he was arguing for was the rights of people in prison currently to be able to vote. He thinks they should. Now, I'm going to go on record of saying that I don't actually believe they should. I believe more along the lines of, Pete Buttigieg, who said that he doesn't think they should because when you get incarcerated, you lose certain rights. And while you're incarcerated, those rights should be lost. I agree with him. I believe when you're currently in prison, you don't get your rights. I mean, if you get to vote while you're in prison, do you get to own a gun while you're in prison? That's another constitutional right. So I don't follow that whole line of reasoning why prisoners should get to vote. Now, I think that once you're out of prison, you should be able to vote, get your guns back, whatever. Because if you're safe enough to be out of prison, you're safe enough to be able to exercise your rights again. But getting back to what Bernie Sanders said, while he was arguing for people in prison to be able to vote, he said that voting is fundamental to our democracy, that it is something that is essential to a free country, that it is something that everyone has an inherent right to do, much like the Second Amendment. He said it is necessary to maintain a free and democratic government. Well, that sounds like the same argument that the founders made about the Second Amendment. And the point he made was something as foundationally necessary as voting, which you could easily say the Second Amendment too, according to the founding fathers, if you start to erode it, then it's no longer viable. If you start to say, well, everyone gets to vote, just like you say everyone should be able to own a gun and rise up against their government or domestic or foreign threats, if everyone gets to vote, if you start whittling away at it, if you start saying, well, everyone gets to vote except for these people because we didn't like something they did, or everyone gets to vote because of those people because we don't like what they believe about this, etc. He said, once you start whittling away at what should be an all-consuming right because it's necessary for a free society, you make that right no longer viable. You make it no longer as powerful as it should be to protect the democracy. That's the same argument you can make for the Second Amendment. When the founders said all people should be able to rise up against a corrupt government, against foreign powers, against whatever. And believe me, the thing they put first and foremost in that is being able to defend against domestic issues, a domestic government that turns rogue against the people. That was one of their main concerns. If you start to erode that right by saying, well, these people don't get to because they did this. And let's not forget that the whole thing about felons not being able to own guns was a racist idea from the South long ago, where they said, well, we can't make a law now because of saying black people are equal that says black people can't own guns, but what we can do is make a law that says felons can't own guns, and then we'll just arrest black people and convict them on shit, and then they won't be able to own guns. Because we could easily get them arrested and convicted by a white jury, so that'll be a roundabout way of keeping minorities from owning guns. So even when you ignore that, if you start taking that right and diluting it by saying these people don't get to do it, these people do get to do it, these people don't get to do it because we don't like the way they believe, or even nowadays with red flag laws, etc., well, these people, we're going to take their guns away simply because we don't like something they might do. When you start doing that, you have degraded that essential liberty to the point where it's no longer effective. And it no longer protects the Union as it stands. It no longer protects our democracy. We have a democratic republic, which is a democracy. Some people are like, it's a republic. No, a republic is a form of democracy. Just so people out there know, take a civics class. That whole argument is just kind of goofy. But here's the thing. Like I say, if you think that not allowing people in prison to vote is enough of a degradation to the essential ability of people to have a say in their government, if you think that that's such a detriment to that right that people in prison should be able to vote, then how can you ever deny any free citizen the right to own a gun? Because the ability of the citizens to protect themselves and their state and their country from enemies, foreign and domestic, how can you justify taking guns away from people like that if you can't even justify not letting felons vote in prison? So Bernie had it right. When you take something that is essential to the continued existence of our free society and you whittle away at it, you take away the major protection of our free society, and that's something we shouldn't allow to happen. We shouldn't allow that to happen with voting, and we definitely shouldn't allow that to happen with the Second Amendment. So in a way, Bernie was making the perfect argument, but he was making it more so for people that are free to be able to exercise their Second Amendment than he was for people that are currently in prison to be able to vote. Because once you're in prison, yeah, you should lose some rights. But when you get out, you should get them back. And that includes everything. Voting, your First Amendment rights, and your right to bear arms and protect your country and your democracy from enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Oops.
Go ahead. It's a lady at 46 South Road. 46 South Road.
Station one call, retone that police. 10-4. Captain 4 to go to that location also. This is 1-9, is that correct?